May I take this opportunity to invite Mr. Steve McGuirk from Australia, another left-handed person. He is the founder of Lefty's Left-Handed Products and Resource Center and founder member in Lefty organization, which is an international organization. And the topic that is going to focus on is initial teacher training and classroom applications for left-handedness. And Mr. Steve and his wife Annmaree started their online business after having difficulty finding a can opener for their youngest daughter, Sydney. But after opening their online retail business in April 2003, but as there was little information and even less support for left-handers, they created Lefty's Resource Center to provide free general information to help parents and teachers, as well as encouraging young lefties that being left is all right. Underline that, not being left is right, but being left is all right. They have grown to become Australia's only resource and support service and left-handers, as well as being the only specialty retailer of left-handed products in Australia. And with such resourcefulness, Mr. Steve, the platform is yours. Kindly go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Annmaree. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll just move my screen across. I believe that we can see everything well now. So yes, my name's Steve McGuirk. I live in Sydney, Australia. I'm a registered nurse by profession, specialising in emergency medicine, and I still work at my local hospital. But my wife and I own and run Lefties in our spare time. And my involvement in Lefty has been a growing passion since we started. My interest in education was sparked while my eldest daughter studied to be a primary school teacher. And she actually asked me questions about handedness in the classroom. As you'll find out later on, the more I learn about the issues, the more there is to do. Now, throughout this presentation, I'm going to refer to teachers. And throughout the presentation, this means it will include primary school teachers, elementary school teachers, early learning childhood educators, preschool educators, anyone in formal education for the 0 to 8 year age group. But let's start at the beginning. The famous saying is that it takes a village to raise the child. Their inputs of knowledge, experience, tradition, time and love come together and help teach the child the skills that they will use throughout the rest of their lives. But the modern world involves a bigger village, not as close to the child as the family, but just as influential. And because they're not as close, they don't hold the intimate knowledge of that particular child. Systems and processes are then put in place to support most of these children, but they're only as good as how they are used. Now, around 12% of children are left-handed, which is a hugely significant proportion of the population. If we're going to teach them skills, we need to know early which hand is their naturally dominant hand. All the skills a child learns in that 0 to 8 year age group will be built upon for every other skill or activity that they will use in the future. Just think about it for a moment and follow through this example with your own actions right now. That simple childhood exercise of picking up a grain of rice with the forefinger and thumb, do that yourself, that will build and evolve in using tweezers, holding a pen and learning to write, threading a needle with sewing cotton, adding salt or spices to your cooking, using scissors, working in the garden, and so it goes on. It builds. If the left-handed child has not been supported correctly in this simple pinch pickup of a grain of rice, how are they going to do all of these other activities in life? We need to identify the natural handedness of a child, the need to identify the natural handedness of a child early is clearly evident. If the natural hand is not supported in early motor skills development, the child will develop a poor technique for that task and others. This then creates poor quality work. Even young children will compare their own work with other children's work in the group. They'll see that their drawing or their painting or their writing is not the same level as their peers, and that leads to low self-confidence, evidenced in a reluctance to participate, or they express themselves saying, "I'm no good at this," or possibly even disruptive and destructive behaviours. The overall effect is poor learning that can carry through all of their education if it's not addressed. I propose that the recognition and acknowledgement of a child's natural handedness commence during the developmental milestone assessments that are performed for all children of preschool age. In Australia, new parents are given a record book for their child before they leave the hospital. In my state of New South Wales, the Blue Book, as we call it, contains the pages of information for parents on how our health system can support them during the early years of the child's development. It gives links to websites for further information and support. It works through the immunisation program and records all the immunisation records, and so much more. The main purpose of the book, however, is to record the child's physical, social, and motor skills development through those milestones. At each milestone, the parents are asked to observe the behaviours of the child at play, to record if their development is advanced, normal, or behind. This is then presented to the local doctor, the family doctor, or the childcare nurse for the milestone assessment. My strong recommendation is that the preferred hand used for these activities should be noted during the parental assessment and discussed with the family doctor and childcare nurse. This will then help the parents understand their child's natural hand preference, and then they can support them more fully as a result. We're approaching our various departments of health in Australia to have this included in the documentation. Now, if you wonder whether 12 months is too early to start observing the hand preference of a child, this is my youngest grandson at 12 and a half months old at his early learning centre, as we call it, daycare, proudly looking as though he's going to become a good lefty. My recommendation that the hand activities are recorded by the parent is that they can remain consistent. The handedness can remain consistent or may change as we know it, but we'll be able to monitor that as they go along. It'll also help the parent identify and then support that natural handedness of the child. Now, even though I'm left-handed myself, I didn't even acknowledge the handedness and challenges that my youngest daughter faced until she was already at school. Having it clearly identified earlier would have helped me to support her more closely in those early years. I would also have worked more closely with the Early Learning Centre that she attended to support her natural hand, but more thoroughly. But I'd like to point out that there is no standard definition for left-handedness. This in itself can create issues on how we support children. We generally define our handedness by the hand that we naturally use for handwriting. And I'll emphasise the word naturally, as this is very important. Writing is one of the most complex fine motor skills we will learn as a child, and it takes a lot of work to actually overcome those natural tendencies. Children who are switched hands will take years to do so effectively. Older people I speak to nowadays say they are right-handed, but say that they have terrible handwriting and they do almost everything else as a left-hander. If they were allowed to use their natural left hand when they were writing, they would most likely be fully true left-handers. Other skills can affect people's perception of their handedness as well. Myself, I'm left-handed from almost everything except any task that is two-handed exercise, like playing the guitar, golf, or mowing the lawn edges, all of which I do right-handed. In fact, our handedness is a spectrum. It ranges from being 100% right-handed to being 100% left-handed, with every combination of proportions in between. We know that there is a larger proportion of right-handers that cannot do anything tasks with their left hand compared to the left-handers who can't do anything with their right. That left-hander's capacity to do more with the right hand may have evolved from the need to be adaptable in the right-handed world, but this is still to be scientifically explored. Our natural handedness can influence and affect our interactions with others in many ways. The Western greeting of a handshake, bumping elbows in the classroom, following simple instructions or not so simple instructions, and also hot desking at work can all be significantly affected by our natural handedness. We think and act differently to right-handers. I stated a moment ago that our handedness is generally defined by our natural hand that's used for writing. And despite the proliferation of technology in society and in the classroom, it is acknowledged that handwriting is still a vital component in education. Despite smartphones, tablets, computers, we still need to write at times as a method of communication, identification, or memory support. We write notes, memos, letters, and books by hand still, either through comfort or necessity. We paint protest signs. We send notes to our child's teacher. We need to sign our name on computing tablets to receive our Amazon delivery. Without learning to write, we would not be able to do any of this. And many artistic ventures are based on sound handwriting too. There have been many studies in recent years that examine the benefits of handwriting in this digital world we live in. All have stated clearly that handwriting provides benefits over technological methods. There appears to be a strong muscle-brain link where the act of writing helps the brain to remember facts. Studies showed superior fact retention and recollection when study notes were handwritten when compared to study notes that were typed or recorded. This is a direct benefit for every human for the remainder of their lives, a truly profound revelation. But it relies on the person being able to write well with their natural hand. If the person is busy concentrating on their technique or letter formation or pencil control or any of the mechanical components of writing, then they're not going to be able to focus on the content that they are writing, their recollection, their creation, their facts, their formulas, everything they're trying to put down on paper. And there will be no enjoyment in writing either, as it will always be seen to be a chore. So we need to teach our children how to write comfortably and legibly so that all these benefits can be obtained throughout life. But our handedness gets in the way of this. My first slide listed in the village, those in the village that raised the child. The list included school teachers and early childhood educators. They are the next most influential teachers of children outside the family unit. Yet they learn nothing about handedness during their initial teacher training at university or college. They graduate from university with no knowledge of how to identify or support left-handed students in their classroom, despite having around 12% of their students being naturally left-handed. Those teachers learn about the issues and methods through trial and error or through discussions with experienced teachers in the lunchroom. A review of Lefty membership showed no countries have handedness covered in their initial teacher education programs. 0. This is a global issue now. Here in Australia, we stopped switching the hands of left-handed children in the 1960s after education policymakers reviewed Margaret MacDonald Clark's 1953 PhD paper on left-handedness, laterality characteristics, and their educational implications. Here she identified the flaws and failings of switching the hands of left-handers and recommended allowing left-handers to remain so. Now, I started school in 1968 and I was allowed to remain a left-handed writer, but it was put back to my left-handed father to help me to actually start writing. Now we turn the clock forward 57 years and Australian teachers are still not learning how to teach left-handed students. My eldest daughter has a degree in primary school education and they did not cover the topic at all in her course. It was briefly discussed in one open lesson because she raised the questions and had already been pre-armed with the answers from me. In 2023, the Australian government launched a formal review to inform a better and fairer education system in Australia. The aim is to ensure all children have the same level of access to education, irrespective of city or outback, rich or poor, Aboriginal or immigrant. The expert panel invited submissions from the public, so I naturally submitted a discussion paper to highlight the current status and issues in education for left-handed children. At the same time, the National Education Minister announced that universities had 2 years to improve their teacher training so that their graduates were more classroom ready upon graduation. Their funding would become dependent on it. There were subsequent reminders and announcements by the National Education Minister that continued to push universities and schools to improve training. This included a mandate for schools to return to explicit teaching methods for children up to 8 years of age. Explicit teaching methods are direct instruction on method and technique, rote learning of maths tables, direct spelling methodology, how to grip the pencil correctly, and the like. While the directive is a good step forward, the teachers still do not have the required knowledge to support the left-handed learners in these explicit learnings. We wrote to the Dean of Education at all 46 universities in Australia that train teachers and educators. We gave them a copy of my paper, encouraged them to include handedness in their curriculum, and finally asked them to notify us when they had included it in their programs so that we could include them in our wall of fame. Well, our wall of fame is more like a wall of shame. The list is empty even today. We still eagerly look forward to adding the first institution to our wall. The next round of improvements will come with specific funding to universities for inclusive education teaching, so we then have a second shot there to include handedness in those programs. In 2023, the same year as the review, another Left-In member, Kate Axford in Victoria, one of our southern states, wrote to her local education department to complain about the lack of teaching support for her left-handed son in their early learning centre. This resulted in bi-directional correspondence that resulted in the Victoria Department of Education updating their literacy teaching toolkit to include specific referenced instruction on teaching left-handed students in handwriting. This was the first time that such reference materials had been published in open access format and were not hiding behind a department's security firewall or the like. This is a fantastic achievement in such a short time frame, and Kate and I are now embarking on achieving similar results in the other states around the country. And then just last month, Mark and Heather Stewart in the UK succeeded in having the UK Department for Education include their left-handed instruction in the writing framework that supports the national curriculum. This success came after 30 years of working with politicians and educationalists to have the instruction book published. Mark and Heather are to be thanked and congratulated on this massive achievement that is a true legacy document for generations to come. It will be built upon with future revisions, but it is there. The challenge for everyone at this conference is to use this to influence their local decision makers to include left-handedness in their curriculum and teacher instruction. The biggest thing for teachers to understand is that left-handed children do not simply do what right-handed children do in reverse. It's very simple. Left-handers require specific techniques and instruction, as they do not simply do right-handed tasks in the left hand. It's only with a thorough knowledge and understanding of left-handedness that teachers will be able to actively support those students. So where do they start? The first step is to assess each child's natural handedness so that they know who needs left-handed instruction versus right-handed instruction. And this is where the early childhood developmental milestones assessment will be invaluable. Otherwise, it needs to be done very early in the school year by that teacher. The teachers need to understand the issues and challenges of each child's handedness and to utilise sound methodologies and techniques that support the motor skills development and learning skills of the child. The specific techniques for the left-handed children, the left-handed writer, are critical here. Left-handed children should sit toward the centre of the classroom so that there is less visual distortion of viewing the whiteboard or the screens. Left-handers generally interpret information graphically, so less distortion will improve their learning. At twin desks, left and right-handed children should sit on their respective sides so that they do not bump elbows with the active arm during writing and other activities. It's easy to teach a technique, but not if the correct tools are not readily available for that student to use. Left-handed students of all ages must sit at an appropriate desk. Seating with fold-out desks attached are nearly always for right-handers only. Left-handers then have a poor posture due to twisting nature when using them, as well as the book being poorly angled or not being supported correctly whilst writing. Ensuring soft lead pencils are available to young children learning to write is essential. When writing from left to right on the page, the left-handed writer is pushing the pencil across the page. The soft lead will require less effort, and it will prevent the point digging in and tearing the page. Teachers must also ensure that both left-handed and right-handed scissors are available in the classroom for their students to use without having to compromise or request special favour. When technology is used, it needs to be configured in a way that does not disadvantage the left-handed user. The string that retains the stylus on a computing tablet should be positioned neutrally or else be able to be moved for left-handed use. The computer mouse and driver software for the computer should allow the left-handed user to move the mouse to the left hand as required. Other items that need to be considered for left-handed students include rulers and pencil sharpeners. While these are often not necessities, they can be helpful. And for those that use desk-mounted sharpeners, please ensure that they're accessible and operable by the left-handed students so that they can maintain their independence also. Other areas in schooling, but mainly high schools, also need to consider the needs of left-handed students. This would be for equipment, setups, and techniques. The teachers need to consider their left-handed students for safety and for quality outcomes. School sports and exercise equipment needs to accommodate the left-handed student where required. But most importantly, the teacher needs to understand the role of handedness in those activities and to instruct the students appropriately so as to avoid injury. Finally, teachers must use inclusive language in the classroom so that left-handed students are not singled out or stigmatised. Ideally, the teacher would say, when we make the letter T, our right-handed students will pull the pencil across this way. Left-handed students, you will pull the pencil across the page in this direction. Using language such as this will promote inclusion while acknowledging and supporting the difference. It normalises left-handedness. In summary, by teaching our new teachers about left-handedness before they graduate and enter the classroom, we will see left-handed students learn well and thrive. As a society, we have an obligation to provide equal access to opportunity and to actively support the education of this silent but large minority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Steve. Oh, another invigorating and an enlivening presentation. We are just charged and challenged that as this is not just a localized matter, it's a global matter that we need to, each one of us in the different countries, continents, regions that we are in, that this matter needs to be taken up and taken up seriously with the policymakers, with the education departments, and the tertiary institutions or colleges where those who have to learn how to help the left-handers are based. But it starts at baseline, at the cradle, and even in the nursing space, in the health space, as it has been presented so beautifully, that we need to, as parents, also take an initiative and learn from the tools that are available. I'm sure we are learning from the spectrum of what is available internationally that can also be localized. Even the examples that Mr. Steve gave with Mr. Mark and Heather, the work that they have done, it is collaboration, it is partnership, it is working together to have an impact locally to globally and globally to locally. And thank you so much for the presentation. I was checking whether there are any inputs on the chat, not this side. Mr. Bipin, may you kindly check for us if there are any
Yes, I'm doing that.
questions on the
not
other
in
side?
the YouTube. No, not on the YouTube.
All right.
No.
Thank you so much. This is another time and season where the direction for action is very clear. That where we are locally, in the continents where we are globally.
There is a question. Sorry to interrupt.
Action.
There is a question from.
We will take a question. And may you kindly.
Yes, because we have time. I think we are
Yes.
really before time. There's a question from, I can't read the name. It's Itchmit Links. What do you mean that a teacher must also understand the language? Do left-handed children need a different approach? I have no idea what the question is.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, I think there might be a misunderstanding there. We want the teachers in the classroom to use inclusive language. We don't want the left-handed children to be singled out so that they are made to feel different. While there is a difference in their methodology, we want it to be a natural thing in the classroom. We want that full acceptance of the left-handed child in that classroom and left-handers in society in general. The teachers using this inclusive language or inclusive language methodology is really important to help that child to feel accepted and take on board that instruction much more willingly.
Okay.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
We believe
Thanks,
that has clarified the matter. Mr. Bipin, any other inputs or questions
Yes.
on the platform that side?
Are you making any efforts of bringing people together like we do in India and maybe in Africa, of at least the parents of left-handers? I saw a few in our meetings on Zoom, but are you announcing it? Does anyone have that kind of time to bring them together, at least in a city or a pocket of a city, talk to each other and create that kind of a buzz, that kind of an synergy to approach the governments and make them do the changes? Or it is only happening on virtual level?
Thank you. Yeah, there were a few small left-handed associations or left-handers associations across Australia in past years. They have all disappeared over time. And I think the only one that remains is the South Australia Left-Handers Golfing Club, or something I think they call themselves, the Golfing Association. They're the only ones that I believe are still in operation, and obviously a very special interest there. I have not considered doing something locally here in Australia. Distance is one of our big things, although Sydney is the largest city in the country. We have a good pool of people that we could call on. But no, it's not something that we've worked on yet. It has been myself and Kate in Victoria who have been doing working as individuals, but we're doing a bit of collaboration now that have been getting the results that we've been doing so far. We've only been actively, very active, approaching government and education probably over the last 3 to 4 years. So we're getting some great results, even though we're only fairly new and there's only the two of us.
Thanks very much for such.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mr. Steve, for indeed a presentation that is shifting the needle even to a greater level in the policy, education, in the parenting space. And we are thankful that as you have shared this with us, you have also encouraged us that we need to do more and do better in a collaborative, in partnerships across the globe, whilst we are also localizing interventions. Thanks so much.